Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year. Ha'oli makihiki ho, as we say in Hawaiian. Ha'oli makihiki ho. And I'm really glad that you returned. That's basically what Ha'oli makihiki ho is a celebration of the return of makihiki, which is the season of peace here in Hawaii. So I'm really glad that you're here. Our class today is right along those lines, called Dissolving Enemy Images. And I'm looking forward to sharing it with you in a new way, finding out if it works. And I'm feeling curious and excited. How are you, Jori?
I'm glad to be here too. It's kind of fun to be able to try new things and experiment on you and see what we all learn together. And that's what I see this group as an opportunity for my learning as much as your learning, that we're always all learning together. So I'm delighted that you would share this time with us. Your presence is a gift.
If you're here for the first time, we extend a specially warm welcome to you. And if you're here for the 52nd or the 53rd time, we're really glad that you're here too. It's been a lot of fun doing these classes online for the last, gosh, 18 months now, I think. So looking forward to diving in today. Just to give you a little orientation about what we usually do and how we usually do it, we're here to practice nonviolent communication. So it's not really an empathy group. Although we do our best to live in empathy with one another, this group is designed to support you in practicing skills. We tend to keep things really manageable and low level of intensity to support learning of new practices and processes that can support you in moments when you don't have control over what might be emerging in your life. And so here we practice what Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of nonviolent communication, called the three modes of nonviolent communication, which are self-connection. That's the opportunity to use nonviolent communication with yourself, building a life-serving system within you. And then the other two modes are the listening part of nonviolent communication, or empathy. And the third mode is the speaking part, or honesty. And so in just a moment, Jori is going to lead us in a self-connection exercise. And then after we finish with that, we'll put you into small groups. So if you don't want to be in a small group, you can do what a few other people have done. Put an equal sign in front of your name. And that today I'll be making the small groups. That just gives me the signal that you would prefer not to be in a small group today for whatever reason. You can change your mind later. After the lesson, you might want to change your mind and talk about what we learned today in the small groups. So anyway, we'll start with a self-connection exercise, then we'll move into small groups and do a check-in with each other. Then we'll come back. We have a lesson designed for you today on dissolving enemy images, which is for me one of the most intriguing and fascinating parts of peacemaking. And then we have a practice that's built into the lesson today. And then a chance for you to get back into small groups and talk about what you liked about the lesson and what you didn't like about it, what your questions are, and just to connect with each other about how this might impact your life. At the very end, we reserve some time for you to give us some feedback about what you liked and what you didn't like, and to make requests for what we might do better in the future. And with that, Jori, I'll turn it over to you to do the self-connection exercise.
Oh, lovely. So I'm really thankful that you have all joined us. And this is an opportunity for you to connect right here, right now, in your own experience. And so just take a moment and close your eyes if you're willing, and take 3 deep breaths. And then consider, what's your intention for doing a self-connection exercise? Why would you want to go through this exercise? I invite you to bring your attention to this moment, into the present, right here, right now. And then consider your need for security. Right now, perhaps you can feel your feet on the ground or where you're making contacts, and just notice that in this moment, you're securely planted in the place where you are. And then consider your need for a sense of belonging. We're all here together. You're right here, belonging to this group. Just savor that need right here of belonging. And then consider your need for learning. We're all here together to see what we'll learn. Just savor the opportunity for learning right here, right now together. And then consider your need for autonomy. Right now, you have the freedom to choose to be here, put your attention here or wherever you choose. So savor that. And then consider your need for self-expression. You have so many different ways that you can express yourself. Just savor that the opportunities that we have to express ourselves. Then just take some time to notice what needs are arising in you right now. What is it that really matters to you? Why have you chosen to take your precious life energy and bring it here now? What are the needs that you are intending to serve by this choice. Consider, and if you had that, what would be the deeper meaning to you? See if there's an even deeper meaning underneath that for you. Savor those needs that are arising. And consider, what could you do that could support you in getting these needs met? If there are any requests you have of yourself or others, then taking a few more breaths right here, right now. Whenever you're ready, you can just look around at our community here. We're now at 58 people. Just look, you're part of this. You're part of this community. I see people putting on their videos, which is really sweet for all of us. Thank you. And in a few moments, Jim has put together some breakout groups, and you'll have the opportunity to connect with some other people here. We'll have groups of 3, so you'll have some time, each of you, to connect with each other. And I suggest perhaps you share why you're here and what needs you're hoping to meet by coming here, if you're willing. You'll have about 3 minutes each, with an extra minute there, making it a total of 10. And there'll also be 2 more minutes after you see it closing, just to make sure whoever's speaking gets to finish their sentence, or if there's something else that hasn't been said that really feels important to be said. So Jim, if you're ready, you
Yes,
can open up
I
the
am
room.
ready. And so we'll find out if I need to make some adjustments, of course, but we'll see you all back here in 12 minutes there, more or less. And here you go.
Well, all right.
Okay, if you guys are stuck here, it means I haven't put you into a group yet. I will as soon as I can. Sue, I saw your message, so I won't put you into a group. Looks like we'll have one group of 4. Pausing the video
Thanks, Jim.
before I forget.
Oh, welcome back. Almost everybody is here. Give it another few seconds. Yeah, so an opportunity just to take a couple of breaths again and arrive back in the large group after all that travel of whooshing back. Yeah, and I'd love to hear any feedback anyone has on the self-connection or anything else that that's important for you to have heard right now. And Renee, go ahead.
So I just want to say publicly what I shared in my group. On Saturday, I had an epic communication fail. And I really was aware of staying in relationship, thinking I'm saying everything the right way, that this person could hear me. And it was through text. And it was a person I didn't know. And it was like in a group. And I was just trying to say that that the strategy she was suggesting was not lighting my life. And that I just loved the idea, but I didn't love the strategy. And my words were just failing. They were not, I could not say what I wanted to say in a way that could be heard. And I just couldn't. And I've been like licking my wounds since then. and I love how you asked about intention, because I'm like, oh, I came for connection, I came for mutuality, and then I'm like, no, I came to hear other people say, oh yeah, I've had that same experience. I came for whatever that word would be, to know that I'm not alone in this experience, that I had this epic fail, and I put out, let's see if we can, keep going and get to a point of understanding. But I don't know. I think she blocked me.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, I
so
bet,
you actually did. Go ahead, Jim.
I was just gonna say, I guarantee you, you're not alone. I was just gonna say, if you're in the same boat, just go ahead and raise your hand and let Renee know that we've all had these communication breakdowns in spite of intentions. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, it's our attachment to it working even sometimes that makes it so difficult. But we don't really have control over what somebody else does. We can open up our heart, but we can't really open theirs. We don't get that option. But a high five for your efforts to move in that direction. Thank you for sharing that.
Also acknowledging your willingness to be public about it and to mourn publicly. That's for me, that's a really important step, to not try to be a perfect NBC student, but rather to show up as a fully human person. So thank you for modeling that for us, Renee. Anything
Yeah,
else?
but I want to say maybe were a perfect NBC student and you still didn't get what you wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I do want to say that today is Monday. This happened on Saturday. And what I'm feeling now, it's not so much about my experience, although I'm still, mucking in the mucky waters. But us not communicating clearly. Because she's been talking about it in the main group, I can see there's a lot of pain. That there was pain that she experienced in our interaction. And the part of me wants to fix it. And I have maybe an opportunity in the future will arise, but I'm really in touch with, there was pain that came, maybe from my lack of skill of being able to communicate in a way for her to be able to hear. Maybe she couldn't hear because of whatever's going on live for her, but I am in touch with I can see in her anger that there's pain, and that is giving me grief. I'm mourning that. I'm
Yeah.
mourning that.
Yeah,
So thank you.
of course. Yeah, your heart really feels that loss for her too. Thank you. And let's see, Isabel. Do you want to unmute there? There you go. Hi
Hi.
there.
So let me see what I want to talk about. Just as I was stepping out of the breakout room, I was responding to one of our group members saying if I had practiced what I wanted to say. And I was just saying, I guess I never practice what I want to say, just in my gut. And when I'm able to get in touch, something comes out. And I was then raising my hand and practicing a little bit, and then I just let it go. So honestly, I don't have a particular agenda, except since this is the January 1st, I wanted to say one of the things that brought me here is that you and Jim, you are my MVC models, walk the talk. And this is such a big inspiration for someone who has for 4 decades or more, all my life in a way, looked for models. I could never really find, many disappointments. Maybe the fault is my own, but I really longed for models. And it does me so good, so much, brings me so much joy to have this regularity. So once again, thank you so much for doing what you do. The second point is, as you both know, I went through a brain surgery, and it sounds a lot more grandiose, except it is a brain surgery, right? I mean, even if you open the size of a coin, it is. And from the amount of pain that I'm getting out of it, definitely is a brain surgery. It's been really, I would not recommend it to any of you. The procedure was simple, but it hurts a lot because I think stirring the brain does that. A lot of nuggets of ahas coming, where all these neuroscientific things sort of combine and go, oh yeah, that's why. But what I wanted to say is, you step into these surgeries knowing there is a very, very slim chance of never waking up. So I did that. And where I came out of it, I just realized that I got a lot more vulnerable. I'm not so sure if it has to do with a brain stirring or just my change in attitude. But I found myself within a week, 3 days in a row, crying over nothing. And I do cry a lot, but not like that, without any cause. Just look at something and I start tearing. And I'm marveling, welcoming, because that is what I've been longing to do for so long. So I decided this year is going to be one of courage. And just last night, I did something very, very impulsive that I'm scared of. I told my best friends that something of a piece of my mind, I guess, that I'm not going to sit with it. So that for me is a big courage. I've been sitting on that message for 10 years, and maybe this has to do with enemy image dissolving. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really glad that you are so present to what your experience is. But I'm really not wanting to be on the pedestal and be seen as one who doesn't fall down either. So I just thought I would mention that.
No.
Okay, good.
Never.
Yeah,
No.
all you have to do is come and live with us for a couple of weeks and you'll find out.
We're human.
Dear Jori, you have known me for a decade. You would know that that's not how I would. It is because I cannot put you on the pedestal. It is because of your vulnerability that I love you so much, that I model after you. I'm very good at show off, and I can tell when it's happening. So you are my model still, regardless of which way you turn. No worries.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'm sure I've done some things you can model, so thank you. And yes, we've had a very long relationship, God, 20 years of when we used to go
To Korea.
there.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
at least
but
10 years. Yeah.
no more, huh? At least 10 years, yeah. All right, sweetie, good healing for you. And we'll move
Thank you.
on now to Janet.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really enjoyed today's self-connection exercise. It was the best one yet for me and really resonated with me. And just thank you so much for that.
Oh, thanks for the feedback. I appreciate that, Janet. I'm glad it worked for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. And Viva?
Well, I've been very much enjoying all the conversation so far. And I want to show you another book, which is about 2 or 3 page essays, one after the other. The title of the book is My Grandfather's Blessing.
Oh, yeah.
My Grandfather's Blessings. So these are probably true stories. Maybe all the names have been changed, but the author, Rachel Naomi Remen, R-E-M-E-N, is a medical doctor. She decided when she was 4 years old to be a doctor. She was first doctor to be in her kindergarten. But everybody in her family was some kind of a doctor, except her grandfather. He was an Orthodox Jew who had escaped from, I think, maybe not Germany, but Europe anyhow, with his whole congregation to New York. And everybody, her aunts, uncles, parents were in the medical business, but not her grandfather. Her grandfather, by the time she was born, would pick her up from school and inspire her with his little stories that were appropriate to her age. Okay, so she had her own medical problems. She has Crohn's disease. I think she's still alive. And so I would suggest to any of you, because as medical people, they are instructed, they spend a lot of time, intense time, learning, memorizing, trying to cure people, but they don't learn how to listen. They don't learn how to listen. And so I highly recommend this book because she's teaching us how to listen.
Thanks.
Because the
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Stephen.
healing is not the same as a cure. A healing is where you find your own resources to heal yourself.
So Stephen, is that complete enough for you? Because we have some other hands that are up right now and we have an agenda. Would that work for you for us to move on?
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you, Siva. Wonderful.
And Rob?
Yeah, hi. I just have been really going over and over again this one line from the email that was sent out about having an enemy image is like taking poison and hoping it will kill the other person. And I was just thinking how one situation, how I just kind of manufacture these enemy images, but most of the time it's not clear. Like I had supposed to go on vacation with somebody else came along, my need for choice wasn't met. And then I had all this, anger towards and all this. And so anyways, it's just, I've just kind of how complicated it is, at least in my psyche, discombobulated it. And those enemy images are always like trying to help me get my needs met, but, in a kind of self-defeating way. So.
Yeah, I appreciate how you define that. It's resonant for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe I first heard that quote from Pema Chodron, the Buddhist nun, the first Buddhist nun in North America. And it just knocked, I think Jori was with me when we heard it, and it just knocked our socks off. It's like, oh, that's really what I do. I create these enemy images or resentments or moral judgments. And I think, it's coming from a punitive energy, but I'm the one that pays the price. Yeah. Thanks, Rob. We'll see what happens as we learn a little bit more about transcending them today.
And for Guy, there's something you want to share?
Sorry, thank you. Yes, there's another version of that, which is it's like setting myself on fire, hoping that the smoke bothers somebody else.
I never heard that one, but it resonates for me too.
Thank you, Jori. I was absolutely blissed out in your meditation. And where I really went transcended was when you started to talk about creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was so much at peace. And I thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to share with you that as a result of all these practices, I listened to Nelson Mandela, a 60-minute thing about him. He died last week, the day after Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it was Desmond Tutu, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And during the reconciliation hearings, the only requirement was that people would tell the truth and they would be granted amnesty. And it was very powerful. And at one point, as he was listening to a woman who had talked about being tortured, he broke down and he just sobbed, and the people around him put their arms on him, their hands on his back. And I was awestruck by this, including the people who were in so much denial that they thought that by asking them to come and tell their true story, the people who had tortured other people, that they thought that that was a witch hunt. And I thought, oh my God, I'm so thankful that I saw that. It was so extreme. I still have not processed it, but I wanted to share that with you folks. Thank you.
Thank you for that vulnerability.
Thanks, Guy. Really enjoyed everyone's sharings today. And I want to just read what Minako put into the chat. For those of you who haven't met Minako, Minako comes from Japan to these classes almost every week, maybe every week, and is learning English, and she communicates a lot by chat. And she says today, many people spend New Year's with their families in Japan, and I went to my parents' house 4 days and 3 nights. When I had my first experience of being offered empathy, I was scared and defensive of being intruded upon. I was exposed to a lot of automatic systems that protect me, such as fear of confirmation of facts, defense, and respect for being in that state. Just looking at it from a place of gentleness is going to help me with today's listening theme. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So today's class is on dissolving enemy images. I'm going to share the screen with you and see what kind of fun we can have today. So the definition for dissolving an enemy image that we came up with when we wrote the Matrix, inspired by a quote that I'll share at the very end of the class today from Marshall Rosenberg: transcending one's perceptions that another deserves to be punished or harmed. Transcending one's perception that another deserves to be punished or harmed. And this is the pathway for that skill. We always start with any skill, whether it's tying your shoes or dissolving enemy images or any skill. We start without any knowledge of the skill. And there's no judgment on that. None of us are born with these skills. And so we learn them. And there's some things in that first block there that are like the wake-up calls for me for when I have an enemy image. I notice us versus them thinking in myself. And I have the thought that they deserve to be punished or harmed. And as time goes by, we become aware, just like Rob was mentioning, that there are costs to having enemy images. And maybe we get a little curious. Is there an alternative? Maybe we've never heard of alternatives to a punishment system. So we get curious and maybe learn something about mediation or nonviolent communication or something like that. And then as we learn and integrate the skill more, we become aware of how we might hold an enemy image. We might become aware of how, when it appears that another person or group is holding an enemy image. And we use that as an opportunity to reconnect to what's underneath that enemy image. That's what we're going to practice today. And when we get to the end of that pathway, we have a sense of holding everyone with compassion. As I remember Marshall said, when we live from needs consciousness, there are no enemies. We're just focused on compassionate giving and receiving. So we're going to practice today. Rather than do a lot of talking about this skill, I want you to discover what you can learn about it. And so let's kind of do a little mini version of where Jori started the class today, what we nickname as the 0 step. So first, just clarify your intention once again, and why you would want to do a class on dissolving enemy images when you could be watching Netflix or any of 10 million other things. Why do you want to do this? And then to cultivate presence, to bring as much of your mindful and heartful energy to the present moment. And then to open to outcome. The effect of the 0 step is to say yes to life, to say yes to what comes next in life. And so in just a moment, I'm going to play a video for you. I think it'll be familiar to you. I would be shocked if it wasn't familiar to you. And it's about 2 minutes and 45 seconds long. And the idea is that you start from this 0 place, this 0 step, and then practice observing, to watch the video. Try to really be present to watching the video using the skills that we started with a few weeks ago. And then as the video unfolds, notice when you feel separate. I can almost guarantee that you will feel separate watching this video. Hopefully it'll be just a teeny tiny bit of constriction, not anything that's going to overwhelm you. I think it's going to be an experiment where you'll be able to feel the feeling of an enemy image arising without taking it seriously at all. And so you'll be able to really pay attention to the physical sensations and the urges that you have. For me, one of the things I really notice about an enemy image is there's an urge or compulsion to act in a way that's almost guaranteed not to get my needs met. And the third part would be to become aware of the thoughts that you have and the images that you notice. So I'll play the video now.
Howdy, Miss Gus.
I want to see you and your wife right away about Dorothy.
Dorothy? Well, what has Dorothy done?
What's she done? I'm all but lame from the bite on my leg.
Me, she bit you?
No, her dog.
Oh, she bit her dog, eh?
No. That dog's a menace to the community. I'm taking him to the sheriff and make sure he's destroyed.
Destroyed? Toto? Oh, you can't. You mustn't. Auntie Em, Uncle Henry, you won't let her, will you?
Of course we won't. Will we, Em?
Please, Aunt Em. Toto didn't mean to. He didn't know he was doing anything wrong. I'm the one that ought to be punished. I let him go in her garden. You can send me to bed without supper.
If you don't hand over that dog, I'll bring a damn suit and take your whole farm. There's a law protecting folks against dogs that bite.
How would it be if she keeps him tied up? He's really gentle. With gentle people, that is.
Well, that's for the sheriff to decide. Here's his order allowing me to take it. Unless you want to go against the law.
We can't go against the law, Dorothy. I'm afraid poor Toto will have to go.
Now you're seeing reason. Here's what I'm taking him in. So he can't attack me again.
Oh, no, I won't let you take him. You go away. Oh, I'll fight you myself.
Dorothy.
You wicked old witch. Uncle Henry, Annie M, don't let him take you. Don't let him take you, please. Stop her.
Put him in the basket, Henry.
Oh,
Yeah, I did.
no, Henry. Oh, don't.
Elmira Gulch. Just because you own half the county doesn't mean you have the power to run the rest of us. For 23 years, I've been dying to tell you what I thought of you. And now, well, being a Christian woman, I can't say it.
So notice how you feel right now having watched that video. Pay a special attention to physical sensations and emotions. Notice it first, and then just let yourself feel it, whatever the feelings are. There's no right feelings, no wrong feelings. And then if you are like me, you probably had some judgments come up about some of the characters that we just saw. And so take a few minutes. I'm going to be quiet for about 3 minutes while you write down your judgments. So just write down any judgments that you come up with. You won't have to share these with anybody. They'll be private. I'll put the instruction in the chat.
If anybody wants to put the feeling in the chat, feel free to do that as well.
Another 30 seconds or so. So I'm enjoying seeing the chats and people willing to share their feelings, share their needs, will be coming next. So give yourself permission to feel whatever you feel and to think whatever you think. And now we can do some of the first work of transformation. So the idea that I learned from Marshall, and I've found to be remarkably effective, is to take each judgment that you wrote and transform that into a feeling and a need. So for example, if I actually had a judgment of Uncle Henry come up, and the observation was Uncle Henry deferred. My judgment was that he let go of his own power and tried to put it off on his wife, Auntie M. So my judgment was he shouldn't give up his power. So I would write that down. I'd notice the feeling that I have about that. I feel despondent, sad, annoyed, even some anger. And then I link that to my need. And my need is for mutuality, shared power. As soon as I say shared power, I notice something in my body relaxes a little bit. So I'm going to put the needs chart up for you. But now I'm going to be quiet again for a few minutes, about 5 minutes this time, to give you some chance to work on transforming these enemy images into feelings and needs. So just write down, take whatever you wrote, say it to yourself, notice the feelings and connect them to your needs. You don't have to use this chart, you can just use your own body, but sometimes people like charts, so put it up. And I'll be quiet again for 5 minutes.
Jim, the chart is blurry. It got clear and then blurry again.
Could be something in our internet, but hopefully it'll clear up.
Anyway, if there's something you can do about it, we don't need to talk about it.
Yeah, I can't do anything about it. I see your hand, Alice. You have a question? Oops, I can't hear you. I see your mouth moving. I'm not hearing you yet, so try to unmute yourself if you can, and I'll hear your question.
No, it's just thinking.
Okay. one more minute. So, curious to see if anybody needs some support in transforming one of these enemy images. You could just say what the thought was, and we could all make some guesses about your feelings and needs. If anybody's stuck on anything, if something doesn't make sense yet, just raise your hand or put it in the chat. Go ahead, Jennifer.
My enemy image actually became the unseen law that was going to be backing up the bitten person's experience. Once the dog escaped, I was frightened that what would happen next, and so I was sensing that there wouldn't be any protection for the niece. The adults would probably not be empowered, and then I realized, of course, it was my own sense of lack of protection by these agencies was triggered. And I have no idea how to transform that enemy image of the law as an unfeeling, impersonal being agent.
Yeah, that's a great question that I've never really thought of before. It sounds like you did it. It actually sounds like you transformed it, that you got connected to your needs for protection and maybe a sense of mutual support, mutual aid, that we live in a society where rather than punish people by taking away their land or whatever the threat was in that little movie clip, that we live in a society where we try to restore connection and we try to restore any harm that has been done. And so I think this is actually one of the motivations of social change, or that we actually connect with our despair about systems that are not working to support life. They're not life-serving systems. And that we get the signal from our bodies that these systems exist and they don't work for us. And that actually is one of the engines or motivators that can help us to begin to do work at whatever level that we feel led to do. Maybe it's letter writing or just getting involved with in local politics or voting, or there's thousands of strategies that we can then employ once we get connected to the needs. So how do you feel hearing that, Jennifer? Does that answer your question?
Yes, I hadn't got as far as you got because all I could see was this strong arm of the law coming down in a more vigorous way. So you took it one step further, Jim.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. That's what we're all going to do here in a minute or two. Anybody else get stuck on anything? Yeah, go ahead, Maureen.
Perhaps I wasn't stuck, but when I was just got a revelation about this whole concept tonight, I jumped to trying to figure out what the unmet needs are for the person whom I'm judging, forgetting the first step of figuring out what my needs were. So that's a revelation that I hadn't understood before. So
Wow.
Thank you.
That's so important to notice that often we skip the self-compassion step. And so I'm really glad you noticed that and highlighted it for all of us, because many of us have been trained to ignore our own needs and try to focus on the needs of the other person. And it can come at great cost to us. We'll all pay the price for that. So thank you for highlighting that. Anybody else have any?
We actually have a phrase for that, of putting the oxygen mask on yourself.
Yeah. Before assisting others, exactly. Yes. Okay, so let's go ahead and take the next step. So if you had more than one enemy image come up, like the natural enemy image there is for Elvira Gulch, who is, by the way, played by Margaret Hamilton. I believe she either was nominated or won an Academy Award for her portrayal in this movie. She becomes the enemy that everybody loves to hate. And I'm just always amazed at her, at how she showed up for this performance. And so maybe that's where you want to put your compassionate energy if you feel ready to do the next step. Or maybe you have an enemy image of Dorothy, or maybe you have an enemy image of Uncle Henry or Auntie Em. But pick one of them and then see if you can make a guess about what they were feeling and needing when they behaved the way that they did. So I'll just use as an example the opening observation, which is Elvira comes and she's angry because allegedly Toto bit her. And so her behavior, my guess is her behavior, she's feeling angry and hurt, and her need is for protection. She wants to live in a world where people control their dogs, and she feels safe. That's just my guess. I don't know. We'd have to ask Elvira, and since she's a fictional character, we really can't ask. So all we can do really, empathy is making a guess about what's the need that motivated the behavior that we reacted to. So now we're actually going to do the step that Maureen noticed that we often go to automatically. Now we're going to actually pull our attention in that direction. And pick one enemy image and see if you can make some guesses about the need that motivated the behavior that you didn't like. I'm going to put something into the chat that might be a prompt to help you, especially if you're newer. Anybody want some help with this part? Anybody stuck on what could possibly be motivating this behavior that you reacted to in the other person? You could put it into the chat, or you could raise your hand. So if you've got something, put it into the chat. So it might look like something like Elvira Gulch, her need was protection or safety. Go ahead, Isabel.
Thank you, Jim. Doing enemy image process, does it always require a targeted person or a subject? Because I find myself in a totally different space at this point, and I have a huge knot in the diaphragm. And it has to do, this is very difficult, but I at the same time want to respect what you are trying to do and teach. So I'm really scared to bring this topic up.
Yeah, so you notice a painful feeling in your body, a real sense of constriction.
And that's one of the question is that, the quick question is, do I need to have a subject? It's because mine is not the witch, not the film itself. But the first thought that came out was it's the Western civilization, it's the Hollywood.
Yeah, you can use that. That's fine.
Is that okay?
Sure, you can try. It's a little bit more challenging. It's more PhD level, but it works. You can have an enemy image of a system like colonialism or racism or white supremacy or anything like that. But I think for manageability, it helps me if I can bring it down to a particular person, because an important part of this process is humanization. When we're doing the step that we're
then it'll be
now,
you. Well, then if I were to bring it to one person, it'll be the person who brought up the clip.
Yeah,
you.
Great. Yeah, so then if you feel ready, and I wouldn't push it, but only when you've received enough empathy, then you might be able to make a guess about what the need was that motivated me to share that clip.
Thank you. So what I'm taking away is it is better when you have bring it down to a level of smaller size, bite size, and go from there. And I agree.
Yeah.
But there is nothing in the book that says you can't do a whole systemic thing. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say experiment. Anything that brings relief to suffering, I'm all for. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you.
Tanya, I missed your hand being up a minute ago because on my screen your hand is the same color as your wall, so it was disappeared.
Yes, I picked a color mapping to my skin color instead of yellow.
Yeah.
It seems to cause problems. So for me, Elvira Gulch is disingenuous. And so I see people talk about her wanting protection or whatever, and I just go bullshit. That she just wants to harm other people and feels left out. I guess her need for belonging, and she's trying a tragic way to belong. But I think that her purpose in trying to destroy Toto was to break up the happiness of others because she didn't have any.
Yeah. So you imagine that her one of her underlying needs was well-being, to be happy, to actually find some sense of well-being, and she had this tragic strategy of trying to punish other people and control other people to try to get there. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I felt, so my reaction, I had tears come to my eye. One for Dorothy for losing her dog. And I think also for this sadness for the whole situation, here's this disruption going on. And the aunt and uncle have no way of, have no understanding of how they can respond because they're law-abiding citizens.
Yeah.
And of course, I knew Toto would take care of the situation himself, so it wasn't.
Yes. In a way, Toto is the stand-in or the representative for life itself. life can't be controlled. Life just unfolds. Life tries to take care of itself. Yeah. And when I think about Elvira, and maybe there'll be a little bit of time at the end to talk about the play Wicked, which totally reframed my whole experience of Elvira. Elphaba, as her name is in the play Wicked. But just going back to what we don't know anything about Elvira's story, but my guess is there's trauma in her history. Something happened to her and hurt her. Don't know what it was. And she doesn't have NVC skills. So she's behaving reactively in tragic ways that are almost guaranteed not to get her needs met. And so I want to grow my ability to have compassion for the Elviras of the world, because I want to be free of suffering. And then I feel, when I feel openness to me, to how other people are, then I can begin to move into dialogue, which we're going to get to in just a second here. Let's check in with Margaret.
Yeah, my anger or my enemy image to a certain extent would have been the aunt, because she was able to speak her piece about the Elvira not being very fair and controlling in that, but she didn't do it in front of Dorothy, so that Dorothy felt unsupported.
Mm-hmm.
Like she waited until Dorothy was gone to say all that, and I felt that was traumatic for Dorothy, that she didn't get any support from her aunt and uncle. Like, yeah.
Yeah, so your compassion went to Dorothy, and you really wanted her to have a sense of solidarity with her maternal figure, Auntie M. And it was heartbreaking for you, it sounds like.
Well, it was just like it's sort of, she had the courage to speak up to her, but not to support Dorothy. Like it was almost like an afterthought, and that annoyed me, because I sort of thought like the time to speak up would have been when Dorothy was there to show support for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like I understand the aunt and uncle would have been in fear because this lady had a lot of power in the community and whatever, but at the same time, if they were going to speak up, why wait until Dorothy was gone before doing it?
Yeah. You would have really liked her to speak up when the moment was ripe, and Dorothy could have got the support she needed. So your need was support. Your need was support for Dorothy. Yeah.
I actually felt sorry for the woman that got bitten too.
Yeah, you had some compassion.
Like if you get bitten. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And let's see here. Siva, go ahead.
I found myself laughing at Elvira and not empathizing, but at least sympathizing with Elvira, because it was very, very clear Elvira is a victim. She didn't have a dog when she was a little girl. She had parents and who somehow got to be wealthy. Now, how do you get wealthy in that kind of situation? You control the land. And that's pretty sad when somebody is controlling the land, which is the livelihood, which is the life of so many other people.
Yeah.
And and even so, I was laughing at the ridiculousness of human beings to think that they can function power over when really we need power with. We can't, when there's power over, it doesn't work. It just cannot work.
Yeah.
Just cannot.
Yeah, so I really catch your compassion for Elvira and whatever trauma that she might have gone through, and also you're moved by the systemic issues that might have stimulated some of the trauma that's all these people are going through at the same time. They're all kind of in a traumatic system. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
What you're doing, there's another book I read called High Anxiety. It's called Looping, and you do it brilliantly. I think I come mostly to learn how so many people in this group do looping. That's necessary. It makes people feel heard. And we need to feel heard. It's a hugely important skill.
You're absolutely right. We all need acknowledgement. Thank you. And John?
I just wanted to acknowledge actually that what Ziva said was quite insightful. I liked it a lot, in my opinion, in my judgment. And that it got me thinking, you know, because I don't know the history. I can't remember the movie. I mean, I can remember it, but not in detail because I saw it when I was a kid. But I imagine that if that was the case, then she was very othered. She was like, no one liked her. She had all these enemy images against her, which self-manifested.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, I appreciated that. Thanks.
Welcome. So the last step before we go to small groups to talk about it, and maybe what we'll do is we'll talk about it in the small group, is now you're the mediator. You've been called in to support this this initial incident about the dog bite and all these things that happened afterwards. But now there's been some kind of court mediation, and you've decided that you're willing to be the mediator. So now you've connected a little bit with the needs of, let's say your mediation is between Dorothy on the one hand, the dog owner, and Elvira on the other hand. So the question is, if you could put all of the needs that you could identify that are alive in Dorothy in her moment of fear around losing the life of her dog, her companion, basically her child, and you connect with all the needs that might be alive in Dorothy on the one hand, and you can connect with all the needs that are alive in Elvira on the other hand, the need to be safe and be protected, maybe to heal from trauma or whatever the needs are. And so now as a mediator, you have identified all these needs. What's a request that you could imagine that you can make as a mediator that might support connection? Not trying to solve the problem yet, but what's a request that you could imagine might support connection between Dorothy and Elvira that would address the need for connection? So that's your assignment, to talk about this process, any empathy that you might still need, because there might be still a need for empathy here. But when you're ready, if you have the time, and we'll have 20 minutes for this, talk about what you might do if you were in the position of peacemaker here. And Jori, if you got the timer reset.
I've got the timer reset, and I've got groups mainly of 3. I think one group of 2.
Great.
And if you came in late, of course, we'll put you into another room.
Okay, we'll see you guys back here in 18-20 minutes.
Okay.
So I don't forget. Jori, your camera is off. Ta-da. Yeah, so what'd you learn? What did you learn?
Jim.
Yeah.
May I request you help us shift the topic somewhere else for just a second, because we actually dealt with a real situation in our breakout room, and I have this need to sort of laugh it out or get out of this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm also feeling protective of Sterling, who was the one who shared. So I'm guessing that maybe Iris and Sterling were all in this zone of still being in that.
Yeah.
And I don't have the brains right now to step out voluntarily alone.
Yeah. So you're catching
Make
that
me do
maybe there
something.
might be some more need for empathy.
No, rather to shift out of this zone, like you know when you are like needing to shake yourself out of it,
Yeah.
something quick.
Yeah. Well, the
That's
quickest
a
thing
good
I know,
idea. Take a look.
yeah, the
Go
quickest
ahead,
thing I
Jim.
know is maybe Jory has another idea too, is just to look around. Just let your eyes go wherever
Yes.
they want to go, and that often will help me to get
Mm,
regrounded again. So
perfect.
if you feel
Thank you.
triggered, you can just look around, and then just keep looking around till
Yes.
you find something that meets your need for beauty.
It already worked for her, sweetie. She said it
Right.
perfectly. Yeah,
Thank you.
Just like
great.
that. These
Yeah.
brains don't want to stay in suffering. So,
Mhm.
anybody else have anything you'd like to share? By the way, just to acknowledge that the enemy image process is extremely powerful, but this is PhD level stuff. This is, we've been working for since October. I think our first class in the series was in October. So October, November, December, we've had 3 months of practice, and it's still a challenge to work even with fictional enemy images. But when they become real, and they're actually present in our lives, they're even more. Everybody, like I was just trying to find the backstory on Elvira while you guys were in your group. I haven't really found anything yet, but I did find one article that said everybody has an Elvira in their lives. Everybody has somebody that we judge as mean-spirited and selfish, or whatever the judgment is that you might have had. So we all have an Elvira. So of course it's tender and challenging because maybe we've been harmed by Elvira.
Yeah, and even if it's not the whole person, we've all had the experience of having someone in our react in that way in our lives.
Rob.
And Rob?
Yeah, this was such a heated exchange that I think in a group, I think the consensus was as a media, you have to separate them. You'd have to, maybe take Elvira outside and just, calm her down a little bit and see if she can get self-connected a little bit. And if she can't even get self-connected and taking, killing the dog of a young girl, then it's not possible to mediate.
It may be a really tough mediation. And Jory and I did approximately 100 barking dog mediations in our career. We lived in Albuquerque, and they had a program in Albuquerque where we mediated. It seemed like 100. I don't know if it was really 100, but we would often do 2 or 3 cases a week where neighbors would be upset about barking dogs, cats that were doing things they didn't like, birds that were squawking, you name it. And they're very challenging mediations because from Dorothy's point of view of her brain, Toto is her child. Her brain, and Toto thinks that Dorothy is her mom. And so it's a very deep bond. And so that's part of it. And then for the Elvira in the room, they have a lot of trauma history, and they're scared. And so, they're not getting enough sleep, or they're not getting this, or they're not getting that. So they're coming in deficient. And so in the strategy of mediation that we were trained in, which was pre-NVC, was transformative mediation. So we would often, we never even met the people before we mediated with them. And so there wasn't a chance to really, we had one liner, A's dog is barking and B's pissed off about it and wants the dog to be killed. And so we opened up the mediation with that. That's the observation. And we would say something like, what's going on here? And we would just do the best we could to acknowledge their experience. And we didn't have needs language at the time. I wish we would have. We'd probably had more success. But the idea of NVC mediation is that once you connect to the needs, it humanizes each party for the other. And then that sets up the possibility for collaboration at the level of needs to find a strategy that works for everybody. And that'll be a continuing theme as we continue to explore with the matrix. So we didn't
So we
expect this
have
to be
we have a couple minutes left, I think, and Stephen would like to say something, and we have 2 minutes that, oh, and other people actually are putting their hands up in this moment.
Yeah,
So
we
if
can
we
keep
could
going
keep our
for a few.
messages brief. Yeah.
I'm gonna be really quick because a couple days ago, I saw the remake of West Side Story. So here's the thing. That first scene should be kept just like that. You run the same movie, and then at the end, you do this NVC thing where you see things from everybody's point of view, and they kiss and make up, and only because they're having this conflict is there a reason for the whole movie. But you can top it off by, you see what happens when people don't have compassion for each other.
Yeah, thanks, Eva.
So go.
I look forward to seeing that movie. So before we go to Dimitri, let me just do let me put a couple things in the chat so that you know how to get the recording and so forth. So there, whoops, is it going to go in? Yeah. So you can catch the recordings at pathwaysofliberation.com. I'm a little bit behind on a few of them, but last week's is up, and I'll try to get busy with this week because I'm curious to see how the recording of a recording looks. And I have a book called Pathways to Nonviolent Communication, and that link will take you to a list of bookshops where you can order and get free shipping. You just need to know the name of the book, which is Pathways to Nonviolent Communication. And if you'd like to support our work and the work of the Center for Nonviolent Communication, we do all of our work on a gift economy basis. And so we give this class to you as our gift in the spirit of nonviolence. If you would like to gift back to us, we'll take it, and then we'll pay it forward to either the Center for Nonviolent Communication or to scholarships for people who want to do advanced nonviolent communication training, especially in areas where they could not otherwise easily afford this kind of training. So that's the commercial. We'll be back next week, and our class will be the matrix skill that we will cover is called discernment. Discernment, which is about discovering whether or not we have a choice and how we deal with whatever might come up in life. And so that's what we'll explore next week. And with that, I'm going to just close the class and turn off the recording and find out what these last little bits are. And then we'll open up the rooms for you to go back and finish any connection that you might have. Jori, anything you want to say before I turn the recording off?
Nope, I just want to move toward the people with their hands up and then get you into small groups if you'd like to be there.
Okay.
And
See
I'm
you all
glad
next
to have
week.
spent this time with you. Yeah. And Dimitri?